Oh, hey, didn't see you there. My name's Grant. I'm the music director at KVRX, and these are my library picks. So for my first pick, I'm doing, this is Live to Experience, their album, The Texas Jerusalem Crossroads. It was one of the albums I played probably every show during my first semester at KVRX. They're a shoegaze band from Texas. And whenever I first heard it, the album originally came out like 15 years ago, but I heard the reissue, and it's like a rock opera about if the second coming were to take place in Texas. It's definitely worth a listen, and it's got great cover design. As you can see, it makes a little cross right there, and it's a great album. And for my next pick, I have another album I discovered only here at the KVRX Library. It's Araw and Geddes meets the Congos. It was for the FRKWYS compilation series of compilations, and it's Araw is an electronic musician who got a start in Austin, later moved on to LA, and he always incorporates a lot of reggae into his kind of psychedelic experimental music. And this is kind of the perfect marriage of that. And the Congos are a band that have been around, I believe, for over 40 years, and it just perfectly melds with what Araw does. And for my next pick, I have the Haine soundtrack. It's one of my favorite movies from 1995, and takes place in the suburbs of Paris around that time. And it's got a lot of great songs from Bob Marley, Cameo, the Gap Band, Zapp, and as well as a lot of French hip-hop, which I had never heard before listening to this album. And it does a good job of really putting the listener and the viewer in the place of the characters, which I feel like is what a good soundtrack should do. For my next pick, I have the soundtrack for Rockers, which is another one of my favorite films. It was what first got me introduced to listening to reggae on a pretty serious level. The plot is pretty incomprehensible. It's kind of secondary to the music, which really is what drives this. It's got some great songs from Bunny Wailer, Gregory Isaacs, The Upsetters, just a lot of classic stuff, which I had never heard before listening to this album. And for my last pick, I have Papa M's Whatever Mortal. I'm not too shy about saying this is probably one of my favorite albums. Papa M is a really well-known, really well-respected guitar player. He played in Slint in the early 90s, and on this album he's working with Will Oldham, and it's one of the most human albums I've honestly ever heard. You really feel every ache and pain in his voice, and you get to hear really just like a pure raw human experience in a few tracks. And it's not super long, but I feel like that is kind of what lends to how concise and raw that it is. Alright, so my name is Grant, and these were my picks. Thanks for listening, and keep listening to KVRX Austin.